Welcome to the FanDuel Punch-Out. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Nick Tasso at The Inefficient 2. Taking a look at the Sunday slate here, 15-gamer, and we got some pretty bad weather concerns as far as most of the East Coast games, and it seems just about all those 1 to 135 games are going to have some rain of some sort.
Yeah, I mean, you're really going to have to pick your spots here and just keep an eye up until a lock best you can with the weather. I don't know. Do we have Mark helping on the slate today?
I'm not sure if he's on Sundays. I don't know. I mean, I'll double check, and I mean, if it is.
But regardless, I think everyone should be taking a look when he does. I know he does it like Friday, Saturdays, and he's very good at, what is it, MLB DFS weather on Twitter?
Yep. Yeah. So we got him, and I mean, up to dates. I mean, all the time, nearly hourly from him. So it is a nice ad.
No, absolutely. If you haven't had a chance, definitely check it out.
Yeah, definitely. So tomorrow would probably be a good day to really take a look at weather, though. And kind of, I mean, looking at it, you're kind of hoping that these are just thunderstorms that maybe are just a slight delay or maybe an hour and a half delay, and they kind of just get some late starts in.
Yeah, and delays aren't too bad as long as you're not going with the pitchers. They might get thrown off. But if you're going with hitters in a certain game, you should be all set if they're delayed or if they start and then have a small little delay after a first inning or so.
Yeah, definitely. Looking at pitcher here first, and I mean, it's kind of a heavy slate with pitching, and you kind of got a bunch of ways that you can go. Arrieta's kind of my number one here, 12K. I mean, he's a heavy favorite. He's going up against an Arizona team that's relatively good against right-handed pitching, but you look at what he's done. I mean, he's holding right-handers to just a 186 WOBA this season, and with that win, I think he just comes in as my number one.
Yeah, absolutely. You looked at him, and he's been phenomenal this year. So I know the matchup isn't that great against Arizona, but once you take them outside of Chase Field, they're not as good. So I definitely like him here. But one other guy I'm looking at saves a couple thousand, B. Kluber. He's 9,200, and he's just been really solid in my opinion this year. And I know it's against Kansas City, but Kansas City, I know we've talked about it before, has been a little hurt lately. So I kind of like Kluber in this spot here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a bunch of guys that you can kind of look at. I mean, you look at Jose Fernandez, 11-3. I think he's a great option here. The only issue is that this game, I mean, there's not a clear favorite as far as a win goes just because Harvey's on the other side. But you look at this Mets team. I mean, Cespedes was scratched today. No David Wright. I mean, he could be dealing with a kind of an easy lineup to get through.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's priced a little bit cheaper, so you save a little bit. And if he has an easy lineup, that's kind of what I was thinking with Kluber and Kansas City right now. But you look at Fernandez, and he's a little bit better pitcher. He's been more dominant this year as well. So I don't mind him in this spot. As also kind of like Garrett Cole. I know he hasn't been the best as he was last year, and I know the Angels have hit a little bit better, but I think he can still kind of take advantage of the heavy right-handed batters in this lineup.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's a good favorite as well, and at that price, I mean, it's not too bad. Especially, I mean, believe that game's going to be one of the drier ones, so you might kind of be shifting more of your focus onto him.
Yeah, absolutely. Who do you like saving some salary?
I mean, I'm not going too deep. I mean, I think with this FanDuel slate, I mean, obviously you can look at Harvey, but I think John Gray at 7K is kind of an intriguing GPP option. One, I mean, you're kind of getting him outside of Coors, but relatively, I mean, he's pitched pretty well in Coors over the last 2 starts, and on the road, he's been phenomenal this season. So I think he's a good GPP guy. I mean, obviously, without James Shields now, I mean, he's in a better spot to get a win.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not afraid of all the runs that have been scored at Petco lately?
No, I'm off of that. I think you look at that. I mean, Seattle was red hot coming in, and Padres did face 3 bad lefties, so it was kind of coming.
No, absolutely. One other guy I wanted just to point out too would be Tanner Rourke. I think he's in a good spot here against a mainly right-handed hitting Reds team. So I know the ballpark isn't the best for him, but I think he's in a good spot here.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I mean, there's a couple other guys. I mean, I like Aaron Nola at the price tag, 9,100. Decent favorite there with Willie Peralta on the other side. And you look at this Brewers team. I mean, they strike out quite a bit. I mean, they lead the league in strikeout against right-handers. And Nola, I mean, he's been an elite guy. I mean, a 54% ground ball rate, strikeout rate north of 25. I kind of like him against this. It's kind of not really a strong cash game guy for me, but GPP-wise, I like him a lot.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I just think, in my opinion, his price is a little too high for me on FanDuel, especially when you have guys right around him in similar price tags.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Casimir there?
I don't know. I mean, it is the Braves, and we all know the Braves are really terrible, but it's at Dodger Stadium, so Casimir should have a little bump here. He's been very inconsistent this year, but I think he should kind of have a decent start. I know the Braves do have a lot of righties, but he's kind of a guy who's able to really shut down righties at times. He can get hit really hard as well, but just one of those things in this Sunday game. I think he's in a good spot, good price tag too. It's not too bad.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's been better this month as well. I mean, 28% strikeout rate. I mean, you look at that was kind of helped out a lot by that Reds game, but obviously, I mean, he's holding teams to a 294 WOBA in the month of May, so he kind of turned around in a few better starts. It's a little encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. There are just a good amount of potential good starters on this slate.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to catcher here, and here's a spot where I'm not really inclined to pay up today. I kind of like sitting in that mid 3K range. I'm kind of looking at Stephen Vogt, who's kind of turned around. You look at McCullers, who hasn't been too strong this season, a couple starts, but the way Vogt's locked in, I don't mind that price tag for him in that ballpark.
No, absolutely. He's terrible ballpark for him in Oakland, but take him out in Houston, and it's a different story. A lot of runs get scored there. My favorite guy, though, kind of similar price range, would be Wilson Ramos if he plays. Keep an eye. It is a Sunday. But he's just been really solid. Little mini 4-game history, 2 home runs this past week, and he's facing John Moscott, who just really hasn't been good. He got hit really hard last time out, gave up 7 runs. And this game's at the Great American Ballpark, so I kind of like him in this matchup.
Yeah, I do as well. And I think if you kind of drop down, you're kind of looking at some of these Seattle value bats, and I like Chris Iannetta in that ballpark. I mean, Ionetta's had a strong track record against lefties. I mean, in this season, it's been much of the same, 370 WOBA against southpaws. And Holland's not anything really special, and I think you can kind of look at these Seattle guys and get some nice value here.
Yeah, absolutely. Holland, like you said, isn't the best, but I think he's pitched a little bit better. He's gotten a little bit deeper into games over his past few starts. So I do like him there. One guy kind of in the mid-range that I like would be Yan Gomes. I know he's really been terrible this year, but facing a pretty bad fly ball pitcher in Chris Young. He's mainly a fly ball hitter as well. And it's not in Kauffman Stadium. It's over at Jacobs Field. Is it still that?
Progressive.
Oh, my God. Why did I think it was Jacobs Field? I don't know. But, yeah, I just think he's in a good spot here to kind of hit a home run. Like I said, there's not much upside here. If he doesn't hit a home run, there's a very good chance that he could go 0-for-4. But against Chris Young, I think something's about to happen.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I like that call. And one guy I think you can kind of look at in GPPs is Evan Gattis, 3,600. The price has come up a little bit, but homer in 3 of the last 4 games. And you look at Sonny Gray, he's been awful, allowing a little bit over 400 to righties this year. And I'm not quite sure one DL stint is enough to fix what was going on. So I like Gattis in GPPs.
Yeah, I agree with you there. The name recognition just kind of scares me away with Sonny Gray, but you're absolutely right. He hasn't been too good, and I'm going to wait and see with him, see if the DL stint kind of fixed him, but I'm kind of leaning towards it not actually fixing him.
Yeah. Moving on to first base here, and I still think as much as it is at that price tag, Ortiz is just – it's such a lock right now for points. I mean, there's not really a sure thing in baseball, but Ortiz has been as close to it as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. He's my number one guy at the position. I don't really like the price, like you said, but he's really locked in right now. He's hit 6 home runs over the past 2 weeks, and his WOBA and ISO in that span are both well over 650, and he's just one of those players. He's in that zone, and I know he's 40-plus years old, but it doesn't look like he is. He has bad numbers against Estrada, but he has taken him deep, I believe, twice, and he only has 3 hits against him. So there's still a chance here. He hits better at Fenway Park, obviously, so I definitely like Ortiz here.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of been the thing with Estrada. I mean he's kind of held teams at bay, but the home runs have been an issue. 1.40 home runs per nine to lefty since 2014. So I think you can look at Ortiz and feel pretty comfortable just with the way he's playing baseball right now.
Yeah, absolutely. If you drop down a little bit, though, I like Miguel Cabrera a lot in this matchup. He's faced Quintana an awful lot in 33 at bats. He's 12 hits against him, and he's hitting 418 at home this year, and he has 8 home runs. So I definitely like Cabrera in this matchup. I know last year he was really solid in day games. So if you believe that, I think you should play him. He's at a pretty good price tag as well.
Yeah, I like some of those Tiger bats as kind of a contrarian move, just because Quintana kind of has people kind of scared off a little bit just because he has pitched well this year.
No, absolutely. You look at Quintana, you're not really a guy you want to target. And he's been good, and this is also a Tigers team who strikes out a lot. And you could go with Quintana, but it would be hard just because he's facing Verlander, so the win isn't really guaranteed. And you do look at this heavy right-handed Detroit lineup, so that includes Cabrera and also Kinsler and even Castellanos. He's hit pretty well this year.
Yeah, and kind of guy in that same range. I like Edwin Encarnacion. Eduardo Rodriguez has shown some flashes of being an above average pitcher, but Encarnacion starting to heat up. He's hit lefties well this season. I'm just looking in that ballpark. I think this one's going to be pretty high scoring on both sides. I mean, Rodriguez, there is potential there, but we look at a lot of these right-handed bats, and I think they're very much in play.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Rodriguez is a pretty good pitcher, but when you face Toronto and you're a lefty, it's just you're gonna get into some trouble at least. And I think I agree with you. Encarnacion is in a good spot. He's hit well lately, and I don't know. He always seems to hit the Red Sox pretty well.
Yeah, no, he definitely does. Kind of going lower, I like this call as a GPP. Another kind of Seattle bat is Daeho Lee, 2,900. Kind of intriguing guy just because there's not a lot of name recognition there, but 357 WOBA off lefties, ISO right around 250. Kind of an intriguing GPP option that doesn't really cost you a ton.
No, absolutely. That's some good points right there. Again, you like attacking Holland. I kind of am a little on the fence. I think it's a good idea at times, and I think he's pitched a little bit better lately where I don't want to attack him full force right now. But another guy that I like at 2,900 would be Adrian Gonzalez going up against Whistler. Whistler isn't very good. He's really bad against lefties, and I know Gonzalez has struggled, especially recently, but he still has potential there. Still hitting like 280, 289 or so. So I like him in this matchup. And his price tag, like I said, was really low. So you could take a nice little chance with him.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, he may not have that big time upside, but he is a guy who's going to get you, a run, a walk. He's going to reach base. I mean, that's just kind of what this guy does at this point. The power hasn't quite been there. So at the price tag, I really don't mind it. I think price considered he's a decent cash game guy.
Yeah, 2,900. If he gets 2 hits, it's pretty solid. It's not the best, and he's really not going to hit the cover off the ball like he used to, but it's still pretty good for DFS purposes.
Yeah, definitely. Looking at second base here, and I think if you're paying up, it's for Daniel Murphy out of that tier there. Murphy just on fire. I mean, you're looking at Moscot, a very small sample size, but 427 WOBA allowed to lefties, and you look at Murphy, who's just on fire this season. In that ballpark, it's kind of hard, to go an Altuve or to go a Cano out of those guys.
Yeah, I like Cano a little bit, but like you said, it's tough. It's a lefty-lefty matchup, and Cano really hasn't hit lefties too well. So I like Murphy in this matchup, and I'm really kind of, again, not totally sold on attacking Sonny Gray, so I'd probably avoid Jose Altuve as well in this matchup. But I definitely like Murphy if you're going to pay up for second base. Another guy I do like, we touched on this game earlier, Boston and Toronto. Just like Pedroia here, he's got a 12-game hit streak that no one's really talking about, and he's really turned it around, hitting well over 300 again. And he's hit Estrada pretty well, I believe, and he loves hitting at Fenway. I know it's a thing to say about basically every Red Sox player, but all the Red Sox players, for whatever reason, the good ones, they hit well at Fenway Park.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think Boston's a pretty favorable offense, and kind of going down, I like Jason Kipnis at 3,300. I mean, you're kind of looking to attack Chris Young here, and Kipnis at that price, like, is just a guy who's kind of easily you can slot into cash games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, nice price, and he's facing Chris Young, who we've both discussed is probably going to have some issues in this matchup here.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm kind of looking at some Phillies bats, and this is probably going to start a run of them. Kind of a value guy, Cesar Hernandez. If you need kind of a cheaper option, I don't mind him. I mean, he's not a big, flashy guy, but I kind of like these mid-range guys like Michael Franco or a Cameron Rupp or Cesar Hernandez as far if you need some value because, one, Willie Peralta's been horrendous, and you look at some of these guys through the top five, and they're not bad.
No, I agree with you there. Phillies are basically all in play, and we kind of didn't touch about him at first base. But Ryan Howard, I know he's pretty terrible, but it's worth taking a chance on. He's only 2,700, and if you're making a lot of GPP lineups, you could throw him into a couple of those at first base.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be him or Tommy Joseph. I mean, Joseph's kind of got a nice stretch of starts here, so come off a homer today. I mean, both are bare minimum, so I do think whoever's in the lineup is going to be in play.
No, absolutely. The only other guy that I had, if you wanted to save some salary cap at second, would be Chase Utley, basically for the same reasons as Adrian Gonzalez. Whistler is really bad against lefties, and with Utley still hitting leadoff, he has a lot of opportunity to get a couple hits here or there.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I like the Dodgers lefties there. Looking at shortstop here, third base, and this is where kind of my Cubs run is going to start to go. With Bryant, I think up top isn't a bad option at all. And you're kind of looking at that tier. I mean, Seager, lefty. I know Seager's hit lefties pretty well in his time, and he's on a hot streak. But I'm just kind of looking at Bryant out of that top tier for me.
Yeah, absolutely. You got a lot of guys who are really bunched up in like the 3,800s, 39s, 41s. But you look at Chris Bryant, he's facing the lefty in this matchup. I wish this game was at Chase Field, but if you're playing Arrieta, you don't really want it at Chase Field. Regardless, he still has a really good upside in this matchup. And did you like any guys mid-range or down below?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jung Ho Kang. I mean, back-to-back games with the homer, his ownership's probably going to be a little up there, but 3,300, I can't knock that price tag. I mean, he's hammered lefties this year, and you look at Santiago. I mean, he's been horrible, and it's in PNC, but you know what? I mean, balls have been starting to fly out, it's starting to heat up as far as weather-wise, and I like Kang quite a bit at that price tag.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I also like, I spoke about him earlier, Nick Castellanos. He has over 10 home runs. He's hitting pretty well for the average. I know Quintana is not someone you really want to target, but he's kind of seemed like he's locked in lately, hitting fifth, sixth, and he's just been pretty solid. His price tag's pretty good, 2,900. So again, he's one of those guys where he gets you a couple hits in a cash game you're pretty happy with.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of another Philly guy. I mean, Michael Franco hasn't quite kind of lit the world on fire as we expected this season, but you look at Willie Peralta and how bad he's been. 458 WOBA to right-handers this year. At that price tag, I think you kind of look at Franco and Kang, and you expect Kang to be the higher owned. So Franco would kind of be a nice pivot for me.
No, absolutely. What are your thoughts on staying with the Phillies? Andres Blanco, he's pretty cheap, only 2,300.
Yeah, I think there are some decent values, and I'm kind of curious to see where this lineup comes out, just to see who's in. Because you also have like a Jimmy Paredes at 2,200 if somehow he finds himself into the lineup again. And I really do think 1 through 6, this team's going to be very much in play.
Absolutely. I know they faced Peralta, I think it was last month, and they didn't do too well. So I think second time around, they should be a little ready to be locked and ready to go.
Yeah, definitely. Shortstop here, this is a spot where it's kind of similar to third base where there's a bunch of guys bunched around. And here on FanDuel, I think, with the full slate, Seager obviously coming off a monster game, 3 homers the other night, you're kind of looking at him as kind of that guy to pay up for in that range.
Yeah, I agree with you there. You look at Manny Machado, he's a little bit more expensive, $100, and he gets CC Sabathia. He hasn't hit lefties too well in his career. He hits righties really well, so I think you can kind of fade him and save the $100. You can go with Corey Seager.
Yeah, I think so too. And kind of looking a little bit lower, I mean, I'm not a big fan of some of these guys' price tags. I like Bogarts as hot as he's been, but I kind of like Lindor at a little bit cheaper price tag against Young. I really do like picking on him with those first 4 guys there.
Yeah, it's really a tough spot at shortstop today. Like you said, you have a lot of guys bunched up, and then there's not too many options.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm kind of happy that Aledmus Diaz is still priced fairly low. I mean, one, he's facing Jake Peavy tonight, who really hasn't been good in the last couple of years. And Diaz, I mean, 385 Woboff right-handers, ISO over 200 so far in his short career. And at that price tag, I mean, I'm all over him.
No, absolutely, 2,900. I mean, you really shouldn't look any further down because there's really not much to find. You could probably go with Alcides Escobar, who's leading off, but he's only $100 less, and it just doesn't make sense to go away from Diaz.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I mean, I don't think this is. I think you can just kind of stick in this mid-range, even with the pitching options on the slate. I feel pretty comfortable with kind of at that spot.
No, absolutely.
Looking at outfield here, and I'm not a big fan of the Pirates' prices, even though they are in a decent spot. I'm kind of resulting most of these guys up top to just kind of GPPs because I'm kind of looking at the mid-range. And another Philly that I'm pretty high on is Odubel Herrera. Kind of underrated, I mean, as far as how good he's been this season. You're just looking at Herrera, I mean, 401 WOBA against right-handers this year. And at that price tag, really one of my favorite plays.
No, absolutely. I love Herrera. I've written him up. I've talked about him for, I feel like, all season. And I know he's a guy who came on strong at the end of last year, but he's really turned it on this season. And he's leading off, and he's in just a really good matchup against Willie Peralta. So if that's probably, with cash games, it's probably the first guy in the outfield I'm starting with.
Yeah, I definitely like him a lot. And kind of guy who is a little bit more expensive, but Dexter Fowler, has historically hit better from the right side, switch hitter there. But I'm looking at him. I mean, Patrick Corbin really isn't a strong arm for me. He's allowed a WOBA over 350 to right-handers, and I just think these Cubs bats are going to go off, especially the guys from the right side.
Yeah, absolutely. I like Fowler. In that range, though, my favorite guy has to be Mark Trumbo going up against CC. Camden Yards, he hits very well there. He hit 2 home run game just the other day, and CC really isn't he's not as good as he used to be, kind of in that same Jake Peavy range where he kind of just fell off pretty quickly. So I think Trumbo really is in a good spot here. He just destroys lefties.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Sabathia is kind of due for some regression because really not much has changed. In XFIP over 4, I mean, I think you're kind of looking at a Sabathia that I do think is going to get kind of banged up a little bit going down the road. I'm not quite sure how much in this Baltimore lineup as far as guys like Machado or Jones, but Trumbo kind of stands out as one of my favorites, though.
Yeah, there's 2 other guys right in that same range, too. Really jumps out would be Nelson Cruz going up against Holland, and also Bryce Harper in that ballpark. I know he has kind of cooled off lately, but I think both these guys right around 4,000 are in pretty good spots.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And kind of to talk about some guys cheaper in that option, I mean, kind of Nelson Cruz is the 1A there, but Franklin Gutierrez, I mean, kind of on a tear lately. Has hit lefties well in his career. This season, same thing, 384 WOBA. And also a guy who I think is kind of sneaky for value is Nolan Reimold, kind of a righty out there in Baltimore. 355 WOBA off lefties this year. So I think if he needs to save some cash in that ballpark, you can kind of look that route.
No, I like those 2 plays. I also like Colby Rasmus, too. I know he's cooled off as well, but that ballpark really helps out hitters with hitting home runs, and I'm still waiting to see what we're going to see from Sonny Gray in his first start back from the DL. And if it's anything like it was before the DL stint, I think Rasmus could really knock a ball out of the park.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, he's a great GPP option. We know his upside, and we've seen Sonny Gray struggle and get blown up pretty hard. So you look at them, I mean, they're in an extra innings game. If Sonny Gray leaves early, that bullpen's in trouble. That's going to wrap things up here with the FanDuel Punch Out. Be sure to check out dailyfantasycafe.com for all our great tools and content.